Good morning and welcome to day 2 of the North Dakota Asphalt Conference, brought to you by North Dakota LTAP and all our fine sponsors who provided the assistance to produce this conference. This morning, we're going to hear from our good friends at South Dakota LTAP, Mr. Gil Hedman. Gil is retired from South Dakota DOT in 2017 with 25 years as servicing design engineer specializing in pavement design, pavement rehabilitation, and pavement preservation. He is a graduate of South Dakota School of Mines and Technology in 1975 with a civil engineering degree and has been working as a technical assistance provider with SDLTAP since 2017. Gil, please.
Good morning. This is Gil Hedman. Like I said, I've been with South Dakota LTAP for almost 4 years now. I came to them from the state of South Dakota. I was a pavement design engineer for the last 25 years. I was a DOT, so I worked on a lot of projects, surfacing wise, and got into the pavement preservation world in the last 15 to 20 years of the deal. So that's what we're going to try to share with you today, is a little bit of what we've done since then, is to help you dial in your chip and shot rate for a successful project. Okay, we'll start out with, why do we want to chip seal? Well, first off, we want to extend the surface life of those surfaces we've got out there in good condition. If we keep a pavement in good condition, it'll last much longer and will lead to probably even some pavement awards like North Dakota got with that preservation award from long term. So that's one of the things that will help you get there. So it'll also help you retard weathering, aging of an asphalt surface. It'll seal all those little minor cracks that you've got on the surface, especially on a new pavement. You can stop that water infiltration from day one, which is your enemy out there. And it will also help you restore skid resistance to the surface. If you tend to lose that, maybe over time your surface is polished or that type of thing. Two types of surfaces to look at here. The one on the left, probably not going to get by with a chip seal on that, are we? That thing's probably too far gone. Is going to need something a lot more involved in order to keep it in a good condition. This one is one that's already well down at the bottom of that curve. The picture on the right, however, is what we're looking for. Pavement that's in good condition, we want to keep it that way. And chip seal or an asphalt surface treatment, whichever you want to call it, is one excellent way to maintain that lifestyle. There's just a little deterioration curve type thing, and it shows that they've done some history type stuff. And over the first 75% of a road's life, it will drop 40% in quality. Whereas over the next 12% of its life, it'll drop another 40% in quality. So it just emphasizes the need that when that pavement gets down to that point, you want to have done some type of pavement preservation to up that and bring that back up on the curve correctly. Because once you let it drop below that fair condition down into that bottom part of that 12% deterioration rate, you're already talking some rehabs. You better be milling and overlaying, you better be FDRing, you better be doing something bigger. So that's why we're wanting you to spend the money up front and get it up at the top of the curve when it's still in a good condition up there as in area B on that curve. Just another kind of a recognition of another a deterioration curve, which shows doing those pavement preservations in the good category. As you can see it bouncing up and down up there, and you're trying to keep that thing in good or in the upper fair condition. And research has shown that to extend the life of these pavements, that if you spend $1 or $1 on that road when it's in a good condition and do those pavement preservation treatments up here type thing and keep it bouncing, don't let it get down here, because $1 spent up here, it'll end up costing you $8 to $10 when you get down here to rehab that, or maybe even have to reconstruct it, because you've let it go too far and to get too far gone down that deterioration curve. So very important to keep it up in this category, and pavement preservation treatments like a chip seal or an asphalt surface treatment is one excellent way in order to keep it up into that category and keep you in a good condition. Now let's talk chip seal design method, which is kind of the main emphasis of what I'm going to do in my little short time here today. What should a good chip seal design method do? Well, it should provide you an amount of aggregate to cover 1 square yard of pavement, 1 stone thick, theoretically. Should provide you with a starting emulsion cutback application rate, and that starting application rate should yield you about a 70% embedment of that chip, so that you don't get chips flying off and traffic and causing windshield damage type thing. And you must adjust for the underlying pavement conditions. Like I said, depending on what that old surface looks like, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, it matters down in the design program type thing. So kind of the old rule of thumb that I found out here just recently, I hadn't heard that. I know when I first come to the state back some 30 years ago and looked at chip seals, well, our units out there were putting down maybe 25 hundredths of a gallon per square yard of emulsion and putting 25 pounds of chips on. Well, I guess the old theory back in the old days was for every 100th of a gallon per square yard of an emulsion you put down, you wanted a pound of rock to cover it. We found out now in modern designs, which you'll see as we go through this thing, that that's not necessarily the correct way to do it anymore. You probably need a little more emulsion, and you need a lot less rock than what that old 100th of a gallon per square yard to a pound of rock yielded. What we tended to do in South Dakota after we got into a research project back in the early 2000 time frame, 2000, 2001, we determined that we wanted to use the McLeod, modified McLeod design procedure. And it's based upon a single rock source or sample. In other words, when you do that, you want to make sure you get a sample of that design from the rock for every source you go to out there. If you've got a chip seal project and they've got 2 sources of rock, don't depend that on one of these designs is going to work for both of them, because each pit, each quarry might have different type characteristics, and leads to that you need different rates for each one. It needs to account for traffic effects. In other words, higher traffic volume will lower the emulsion cutback rate needed to hold the rock and achieve that 70% embedment. In other words, you do not want that stones flying around, and higher traffic will tend to dislodge that stuff. So, and the rougher the road texture, the emulsion or cutback rate should be increased due to absorption of the material into the existing surface. In other words, if you've got an old deteriorated age-related crack surface, block crack, you're getting down the road, you're going to need higher rates because you're going to lose some of that material into the surface versus maybe doing a 1 or a 2-year-old asphalt overlay, new overlay for that chip seal. Within the design procedure, there's some things that you need out of here, and for the aggregate tests and the rate calculations, here's kind of the things in the McLeod design procedure that are very critical. You need a gradation. As you can see, I've highlighted what South Dakota's and North Dakota's test procedure is there for a gradation. And it's for calculating embedment, average least dimension, and the median size aggregates, which we'll talk about later about what they do and what they will provide for you. You need a loose weight of that aggregate. And I apologize, North Dakota, I could not find your materials test procedure for a loose unit weight. So insert that in, or I'll talk to somebody and we'll get that in here later. And that's for calculating the voids in the aggregate. You need the specific gravity and absorption of the aggregate. And there again, you can see the South Dakota and North Dakota test procedures. And this is for calculating the voids in that aggregate also, just like the loose unit weight is. You need to know the flakiness index, or in other words, the amount of flat and elongated particles you have in there. Flat and elongated particles are something you don't want in a chip seal. If you got short, flat things, they tend to stick on the bottom and they'll stick into the emulsion, and you will lose embedment on any rock that stone that happens to land off on there, and could even lead to some bleeding type stuff. And again, that's for calculating embedment or in other words, how high the chip is going to sit when it finally gets set down into the emulsion and into the top of the pavement. And you need the median particle size from that gradation band. In other words, you want 50% of the material passing from a gradation band that you do, and we'll show you an example of that later. And the more sieve sizes you can use in determining that graded material, it's going to equate to a more accurate design. Now, more aggregate and tests, you need the voids in the loose aggregate. This is a calculated factor from what we just learned before. In other words, it's that loose unit weight divided by 62.4 and then taken times the specific gravity of the aggregate. You need a whip-off factor, and that's where traffic comes into the deal. It's 5% for low traffic, 10% for high traffic type thing, and that's the amount of rock that's probably going to get thrown off depending on the speed of your traffic out there and how high that is. The higher the traffic, of course, you want to ensure that you don't have stones getting thrown off. The flakiness index is calculated from the test procedure we talked about earlier, and like I said, it's important to keep that flat and elongated particle out of there. Anybody that's using chips from a natural aggregate source, probably not going to have much problem with this. Where we see the flat and elongated particles come into play is from quarries, where the type of crushing that they've done tends to lead to maybe some of those flat, thin products. And that's something you just got to talk to your crushing people about in order to maybe change up their crushing procedure a little bit to lower that. And that percentage in the chip seal world is 30% of that material. And then you can calculate the average least dimension, which is one we talked about. Again, it's, as you can see there by that formula, again, it uses some numbers in there that they determined way back when. I'm not sure the origination of them, but you need that median particle size and the flakiness index to come up with this average least dimension. And then the aggregate application rate. In the formulas, you can see that C when you look on my spreadsheet a little bit later on. It uses the voids in the loose aggregate, that average least dimension we just talked about, the specific gravity, and the whip-off factor to calculate that. Oops, excuse me. The emulsion stuff. Wheel paths, here's the rate type stuff. You want different rates for the wheel paths and the non-wheel paths. Of course, your wheel paths, as you know, you're gonna tend to that's where you're gonna have the stuff coming off of the surface, or maybe any rocks leaving the surface. This is where it uses the two things from the gradation. The wheel pass uses the average least dimension to calculate that factor, as you can see, along with some absorption that we talked about earlier and some of those things that we talked about needing from your aggregate. And the non-wheel paths uses the median rock size that we did off that gradation band in concert with some of the rest of those things you see there, the rest of the aggregate properties. And then you use the average of those two for your typical starting rate out there in the field. So like I said, if the wheel paths, and we'll show you a little bit, might show 0.31 gallons per square yard. Maybe the non-wheel paths show 0.35. Well, you start out in between them when you're actually starting your shot rate out there, and then kind of pay attention as you're going down the road, and we'll talk about that a little bit too. Here's just a shot of a gradation band. Here's one we did in South Dakota for a local county I did. As you can see, there's the determining number here. This 0.35 number is the average least dimension that you need for those calculation rates. So like I said, the more sieves you can use in that gradation analysis, the better this number, the better 50% passing that through the particle size will matter. Okay, here's the one I developed here, and this happened to be in Aurora County. This is a spreadsheet I developed, and it's like 3 pages to get this done. And it takes those properties that we just talked about type thing, and here's some existing surface texture factor corrections. As you can see, you've got several. You've either got where you got flushed, non-porous, or really porous. It matters out here to which one of these numbers you go over here with. So typically, you're probably going to be, if you're doing a new chip seal, you're going to be up here in the slightly non or slightly porous type situation. Or if you're doing an older surface, you might be down here at the 0.06 or the 0.09 additional rate. Sorry. Traffic volume. We talked about that whip-off factor. And it depends on, as you can see, it's just a simple categorization. There's about 5 categories there to choose from and a number for each one. So in this case, for this county road, we were between 100 and 500 ADT. And then the aggregate absorption factor from that test procedure. And like I said, depending on what it is, then it adjusts your rate thusly. So in this case, the absorption factor of that material we got out of the pit, and this happened to be quarry material, was around 1.5%. So we use a 0.02 addition to that. Here's where you enter the bulk specific gravity from the report, and it's needed in the calculations down below on the next sheet type thing. You enter your loose unit weight from your test procedures. You've got a traffic whip-off factor, which we talked about, and that just depends on whether you've got anticipated higher traffic throwing that material from the road. So either going to be low or high in that regard. In this case, we were on a county road with lower ADT, so we were a low number. And you need the residual AC in an emulsion, or in this case, I should have over there, or the residual AC material in a cutback. We'll talk about that. I've got a screenshot of that a little later type thing, but typically you've got 0.65% of that material is actual asphalt, and the 0.35 would be the water that's included to carry in that emulsion. A cutback is closer to 0.8 and 0.2, so for the carrier. There's the median particle size that we talked about that we did on that gradation band, and the flakiness index from the test procedure. And in this case, it was a quarry material, so it was up towards the high end. It was 20%. Here's where we started a few more calculations. That average least dimension. Here's the calculation here that you go through, and it uses the median particle size and the amount of flat and elongated to come up with 0.26. The voids of volume of voids in the loose aggregate for this material. Again, there's the calculation rate. It's the voids of the aggregate chips after they are placed on the pavement type thing. So like I said, it uses a specific gravity and the weight of that material, loose weight of that material. And again, here's where you get into your application rates. There's the C for the rock, and it comes out for this case 26.4 pounds per square yard. And the wheel rate and the non-wheel rates for here, if you look, were 0.51 and 0.39 for an average of 0.45. This job happened to be on a county road that we did while they came out. The original design that they had in the plans that they called for the rates, I should say, was 0.5 gallons per square yard and 0.5 or 50 pounds of chips per square yard. So as you can see, when I took this stuff back and ran it, we were putting way too much rock down. And when I got down on the job, I happened to show up on there, and they started out shooting 50 hundredths and placing 50 pounds. And I got out after the chip spreader went by, and you could dig down about a ½ an inch into the surface before you actually found any black from the emulsion type thing. So we were really going to have to sweep, and we're going to waste and throw a lot of rocks into the ditch. So we got with the county and got them to adjust those rates and get them a lot closer to what you see on the screen here. So this is just an example of what you can do in order to get a starting rate. And again, these are just starting rates out there. You still need to watch what it looks like behind you and on the pavement to make sure you're doing the right thing and not over asphalting, under asphalting, or putting too much aggregate down. Here's what you want that rock to look like, and ideally you want it 1 stone thick, as we talked about. 1 stone thick is an ideal rock, and you want that 70% of the asphalt to come up around it, like here. So in other words, if you're in an emulsion world where you're going to hydrate 30% off, you actually want to see a lot more of that black up in here, because you're going to lose some of that as soon as that water hydrates out of there. Whereas in a cutback, you probably won't want to look a little bit like this because you've got less carrier to kind of get rid of out of that residual material before you've just got asphalt grabbing onto those rocks. Again, here's just that quick little screenshot. 80 to 85% of a cutback is asphalt cement, whereas 65 to 67% of an emulsion is asphalt cement. So, like I said, there's a huge difference in the two. So, depending on which one you use out there, you need to pay attention to rates and actually what it looks like on the road. And here's where flakiness index comes into play. Like I said, where you get them flat and elongated guys get laid flat, or you've got the other guys that are oriented right, you get these guys, this can lead to some bleeding. That's what we're trying to avoid, and especially in flat and elongated particles seem to really exasperate that or can greatly enhance that you can get that out there on a pavement, and something you do not want. Okay, we're just going to look at some typical asphalt surface treatments here now in South Dakota type thing. Here's an interstate that we used out there. Here's a quartzite chip with a CRS 2P emulsion. And again, you can see the nice stone. You can see the black up there as compared to that quarter. You can see that nice little texture out there. And what you're looking for, actually, when you're right behind the chip spreader, is you want to definitely see a salt and pepper look to that pavement surface. You could even maybe see a little bit more of a black in there than what we currently have here, but this is still sufficed. As soon as that rock spreader has dropped those chips, you definitely, and with that little bit of traffic that the trucks have done, you definitely want to see some black pulled up through there. And you definitely want to see it after the rollers have gone by. Here happens to be a natural aggregate with some CRS 2P emulsion. Looks kind of a good look material. Like I said, you've definitely got that salt and pepper look, or you can definitely tell the difference in the surface. Here's just a picture of a local entity here that's actually the city of Pierre working, doing a chip seal. They do a darn good job. They do their own work. They use natural aggregate chips from a little local area quarry here east of Pierre type thing. So there it's kind of a natural sand. They use CRS 2P emulsion. And they're shooting close to 0.4 of a gallon per square yard, and they're putting down around 30 to 31 pounds of chips. So like I said, it's been very effective in the city, and it looks nice when they're done. Here's another city street, and this happened to be Pier 2, but there again, you can see that dark and light color of that salt and pepper look. That's kind of that appearance we're looking for out there with that chip rate, and getting started, and then we adjust from there. If you didn't see more of that, you might want to up your emulsion rate, lower the chip rate, one or the other type thing. You can be the inspector following this job and kind of figure out and see what you've got. Okay, now we'll talk about what can make a seal coat fail. Heavy rain or an overly wet surface. So if rain is imminent, like I said, I think most people have got that in the spec, or you see clouds on the horizon, or you're going to have a real humid day type thing coming up like we sometimes get in June. You don't want to be out there chip sealing. Cool temperatures affected greatly. Dusty or dirty aggregate, that compatibility thing, and we'll show you some pictures in a little bit about compatibility that we don't want to see out there. Late season sealing, especially mid-September to freeze up, is not good type thing. I've got another little blurb later on that chip seals like to be driven on and need heat in order to cure and to actually set that stuff in. So I've got some temperature things that I'll show you later that why we want to be probably off that road by the 1st of September. The South Dakota spec is actually mid-May to August 31. So you want to get off of there so you've got some good time in the fall to actually let that thing cure out. Low shot spread rates or high shot spread rates will affect. Either way, it can really make a pavement fail. So that's why doing a design up front is very important in helping you kind of get down there and, as we say, dial that shot rate in so that you can have a successful job. The last point down there, you cannot roll it enough. You need to have that thing rolled type thing. And most, I think, specs, I think South Dakota requires 4 rollers, and you have to have, I think, 4 passes of those things. I'm not sure what North Dakota spec is, but requires quite a bit of rolling. So, and it's very important to the success of a project. Now we can talk compatibility a little bit here. As you can see, that picture on the right happens to be a stone, and this is a test that you do. You can actually do this in the field. You can take a measured amount of aggregate, a measured amount of emulsion off of the truck, put it in a styrofoam cup and do a little stick, measure it or stir it around a little bit, and then drop it down on a paper towel or something. As you can see here, this dirty natural aggregate, we had 2.2% 200 material with an AE150S emulsion. And you can see the the compatibility on here was not very good. You can see a lot of the rocks that just washed off due to that dusty, dirty material sticking onto the rock. Here's a natural aggregate with 1.2% 200 and an HF-MS 2P emulsion. A little better, but you can see we still had some stones that did not get coated very good, but this is actually better than the other one type thing. This is a little closer to what you're wanting to see type thing out there. So again, that's something that in your design and when you let the project, you need to be working with that emulsion or cutback supplier up front in order to make sure that they test in the lab before it ever comes to the job that your aggregate and your liquid are compatible. So it's a very important part of the process. You don't want to find it out now and then have to switch liquids actually on the go. That's not good. Here's one that's really bad. We had 2.2% 200 again, a dirty natural aggregate, and tried to use HF-MS 2P emulsion. There's not many of that stuck, did there, guys? So that's what you don't want. This is going to be a total failure out there, you know, and you're not going to get any chips stuck to the road, and it's going to lead to a lot of problems down the road. So this is something you should and need to correct up front in the design phase and not actually get to construction with this type of an issue. Here's a washed natural aggregate with some HF-MS 2P emulsion. And look at the difference in the pictures we just looked at. You're going to have a very successful project with this coating and with this type of an aggregate. So very important to get that dust and that those fines out of that material. I think in South Dakota now, we've got a couple of the regions that spec allow up to 3% 200 material in it. But of those areas that do that, I think all of the aggregate producers now have got down to where we very seldom see them above 1.5% 200. In fact, a lot of times they're even below 1% 200. And the quarries especially can get down to that 1 to 1.2% 200 material very easily. And here's what it looks like if you get some bleeding. This happened to be on a county road I found. Where we think the issue happened out here. Part was we FDR'd this road, came along, primed it. Well, there was a little bit of rutting in the road, and I think the prime settled to the bottom of these ruts out here, as you can see out here. And after we chip sealed it, it looked good for the first year, but the second summer, we started getting some 95-degree days and this popped up. Well, we kind of healed this up. It took like another year. He had a little bit of this problem the third summer, but now it's still nice and dark colored down there, but it's not bleeding anymore and not active on the surface. So that's just another thing to be looking at with emulsions and even your cutbacks out there that you're trying to treat these full depth reclamated surface with, like primes. Make sure that you're getting penetrated into the surface and you don't have any material settling in low areas to cause these kind of issues. Because like I said, it'll leads to a pretty black eye, and you know, I mean, you're tracking material everywhere off of this surface. Here's the road that we had some pretty severe chip loss, which, like I said, probably led to, like we said, that compatibility area right there. You can see we lost a lot of aggregate in the wheel paths. It's staying out here, you know, but I bet through a winter type thing, your plows are probably going to drag a bunch of that off too if there's not much oil sticking to those rocks. So that's where the correct emulsion rate and correct rock and the correct gradation of rock and type of rock is very important out there. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap up here. Some final tips for a successful project. You want to make sure your pavement is clean, or broom the heck out of that stuff. Excuse me. Again, we talked about earlier, place your chip seal from mid-May through August for a successful project. And here's that term I was talking about before, because a pavement needs 160 hours of pavement temps exceeding 100 degrees to effectively cure. And again, as we've talked about, use quality materials. Excuse me. Use the proper application rates and adjust those as you're on the go for both the binder and the aggregate. Because in the end, excessive chip loss will only cause failure, and it will lead to great waste. In other words, you don't want to be wasting that rock material going in the ditch, I think. So it's very important to get the correct rates out there. You want a minimum distance between the distributor and the chip spreader, especially with an emulsion. You want those two tied together, because you get them very far apart, that emulsion starts to break, and you're late. Not good. Like I said, you're not going to get that material to stick and the aggregate to coat up around the rock. So make sure you keep that operation tied closely together, that distributor and the spreader. Like I said here, we're recommending a minimum of 3 rollers with speeds under 5 miles an hour, because this compaction must be completed before the emulsion has broken or the cutback cools and stiffens. And the rolling will drop the voids of this chip seal to about 30% and achieve that 70% embedment, like we're talking before, needed for that successful project. So that's where rolling is very important. And then sweep the thing as soon as possible, but probably no later than the cool of the next morning following application, to get those loose chips off of there and kind of keep from getting that windshield damage. And that last bullet down there, remember that details count and quality does not cost, it pays. Like I said, if you get out there and do the right thing, you're going to be able to do a lot more miles. Excuse me, of a chip sealing if you got the correct lower aggregate rate for that emulsion you're putting out there. So it just leads to more miles of a road successfully chip sealed. Again, there's some contact info for us at LTAP. We are located at South Dakota State University, and you got to Google it to get to our website through there. It's kind of if you try to click down through SDSU's website, it gets to be a little bit long and involved. So kind of typing in the right thing, just search for LTAP kind of is one of the best ways. And then lastly here, I'm going to talk about, and I'd forwarded this to Dale here a month or so back. MnDOT actually has a modified McLeod design procedure that works very well on your local computer. Not able to use it in South Dakota because it's been too much of a hassle to get through our IT department and get it kind of loaded on our computers to use. That's why we developed those spreadsheets back in the day to do the same thing, rather than go through all the steps and the hassles. Kind of needed to go through all the things to get this loaded down. But if you guys can download that, it's a very, very, very good user-friendly app. And again, I'm Gil Hedman, like I said, and there's my phone and my contact info. So with all regards, that's it for me. So provided we don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Gil. I think we do have some time for questions. If you could, please put those in the Q&A chat, and we'll get those sent right over. While we're waiting for that, I got so excited I didn't introduce myself. My name is David Farrell, and I am the Safety and Traffic Operations Engineer for the Federal Highway Administration. I work here in Bismarck at the Federal Highway Administration Division office. One of the best ways I can explain what we do is we're from the government and we're here to help. And I mean that. Federal Highway is here as not only oversight, but as stewardship. And we want to make sure that all of the customers, whether it be the public or the LPAs or NDDOT, can call us for technical assistance and can approach us, and we will find the answers. If we don't have it, we know the people that do have it. And so feel free to reach out to your local Federal Highway office, and me or some of the other engineers in the office can get you what you need. Now let's step back and see if Gil, was there any other questions for Gil? I'm not seeing anything right now. And so we'll just move on.
David, do you mind if I jump in?
Absolutely.
So I do see a couple, and I'm getting a different area than you. So if we can, Gil, if you're adding a chip seal to a stabilized base section, is there a method to get the primer to soak in prior to adding the chips? Maybe it's oil type, your selection, or what do you recommend over a stabilized base?
Stabilized base type thing, like I said, well, and the best things we found in all my history with DOT in South Dakota was you need to use those cutbacks. And we preferred to use the MC70 back in the day. Now, granted, depending on how much material you've got in that recycled or that stabilized base and how hard the surface is, penetration is going to be tough type thing. But you can get a little bit, and it takes 3 to 4 days for that to cure. I think South Dakota spec is you got to wait 72 hours before you cover it up too. Just like that issue we saw with bleeding. You want to make sure you've got that cutter stock hydrated out of that material before you try to cover it up type thing, or it's going to cause you damage and soften everything in your chip seal above. So product we recommended was MC70, and I know depending on the various type of bases, the tighter surface, we were down to maybe 0.15 of a gallon per square yard application rate at times, Dale. Like I said, or maybe up as high as 0.3 type thing. But like I said, we did experiment back in the day with an emulsion prime. Didn't have much luck with it. The suppliers didn't have much luck producing it, and I don't know whether they're still there yet today. I haven't talked with any of them, but like I said, so a cutback is probably the preferred material, and you just got to watch your surface because if you're putting too much on that tight surface, it's just going to run off. You don't want that because you're just going to be running material into the ditch that you don't need. So pay attention and start out maybe on those tighter surfaces at 0.15 and then adjust from there. Like I said, if the surface will take a little more, up the rate, Dale. So
very good. So then from our King Asphalt, Ken Swedin is a comment that the South Dakota AE 150 is a high float emulsion under AASHTO. And then we have a question on if you're doing a second lift for a double chip seal, how soon after that first application can we put it on?
You know, I don't have a whole lot of experience here doing it. I would have to rely on to somebody that's actually done a lot of them. We haven't done a whole lot of them in South Dakota. We were just kind of a single chip seal people. I know the city of Pierre has been experimenting with some here that I've been watching the last couple of years. And I think they're putting one down and they're applying it maybe a week or two later, so they're letting it cure fairly well. I don't think they're not letting them go over it immediately, but that might just be in their operation too. Like I said, when we get to a guy like Tom Wood with a little more experience would be a guy that can answer that question better than I can. I just don't have any experience in that area, Dale. So.
All right. Well, we'll hit Tom up when we hit that section. So, David, if I could, there's one that segues perfectly into your next presenter, and that is it acceptable to chip seal high-speed curves on new overlays to increase friction based on safety concerns?
You want me to answer that?
Please.
Oh, yeah, I would think so. Well, in fact, we in South Dakota did some research back in the 90s type thing and got to a program where, and we even had a researcher come look at our stuff out of Nevada, Reno type thing back in the day. And they said you cannot get there soon enough to chip seal a road, and probably especially a curve, type thing to do that. So if you could do it the same year you're putting that asphalt pavement down, it's actually a positive. Now, knowing that we had pavements that were theoretically going to crack, that's why South Dakota actually waited 2 years to do that crack sealing in year 2 and a chip sealing in year 3 type thing. But if we went to the modernization of liquid asphalts, when we went to the 64-34s type things and those things, we weren't seeing any cracking. So we would apply a chip seal either that fall if we had time, or that next spring, summer, right away to get that thing stopped from oxidizing immediately, Dale. And like I said, especially a curve, situation to stop maybe some of that skidding, type thing.
Great. Thanks, Gail. We're running a little short on time here, so let's move on to the next presenter. As something that I'm excited to see from a federal highway perspective is how Our presenter and her county commissioners have promoted and introduced a new project for North Dakota, the high friction surface treatment. And so I'm going to turn it over to Yana. And Yana Hennessy is Montreal County's engineer and has held that position since 2013. Yana received her master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of West Bohemia in 2003 in the Czech Republic, and prior to relocating to North Dakota in 2004. As the Montreal County engineer, Yana leads a large department overseeing 1,600 miles of roadway maintenance. Over the last 8 years, Yana and her team have faced many challenges due to both a robust agricultural area as well as increased oil activity. So Yana, please take it away.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the introduction, David. My name is Yana Hennessy, and I am a Montreal County engineer. And Montreal County is trying something new this year, and I am here today to talk to you about our new safety improvement project, which is a high friction surface treatment. And this project is located on a county road 21 in Montreal County, North Dakota, near Lake Sakakawea. This project is on a north-facing hill side that approaches a stop situation at Highway 23 at 9% grade. This hill, which is approximately about half a mile long, is experiencing extreme icy conditions much of the winter season. Our road department treats this area with a traditional salt and sand mix application on a regular basis. I would say more than regular basis, however, with very little results. This roadway passes through the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers land on the 4th Berthold Indian Reservation. This hill is not only very steep and heavily populated with trees, preventing any sunlight exposure. We also have lots of traffic on this road, probably around 15-20 vehicles per day and up to 700 trucks a day. So combine the steep grade and ice create very dangerous conditions that has resulted in several crashes and numerous near misses. We wanted to improve the safety situation on this hill, and since the traditional treatment wasn't very successful, we wanted to try something new. So we're trying this high friction surface treatment. And with the help of NDDOT, we were able to apply for safety funds and utilize county federal aid. Montreal County will be the first in the state of North Dakota to pioneer this high friction surface treatment. Our team is very excited to try something new, and hopefully next year we will be able to report how the project went and how it performed, especially over the winter. And on this picture, you can see a sample from Alabama source. The material is quite small and very angular. As you can see, it's much smaller than a normal chip. And on this slide, I'm going to show you a video clip and give you an idea of the rate of application and the two-part epoxy bar. And since the contractor is traveling for Pennsylvania, this might be a good opportunity for others in the state to get a good price on the job, since we're going to cover the mobilization. But anyway, we look forward to sharing the construction and performance story with you at the next conference.
Wow, thanks, Yana. That's impressive. Again, as the safety engineer, I'd like to see some of this innovation, and knowing that high friction surface treatment can definitely help North Dakota. And I would like to point out that she made a really good point that as the mobilization is covered from Pennsylvania, others in the state might want to tap into this contractor so that they can get a really good price on these services, because this is has the ability to impact a lot of safety in some of those more dangerous curves or even at an intersection. So again, thank you. I'm looking for any questions here. Yana, hold on just a moment. Let me see if I have any questions. I don't see any. Dale, do you have any questions on your end?
Well, the video was choppy on my end. Yana, is there a chance you could try to re-show that video clip?
Okay, let me try. All right. Were you able to see it?
Thank you. Yeah, we saw it that time. And,
Okay.
and thank you, audience, for bearing with us. It was worth looking at. What Yana was showing is the rate. And it's not all that fast, but it is such an improved method over what started off a few years ago. And Federal Highway's been so instrumental in helping us understand it. In the front, you see those hoses. That's the two-part epoxy being mixed together. And then the bauxite, calcified bauxite, is in the back. And that's just like a traditional chip, just a different, smaller chip being put down, a very sharp edge chip. And so I'd like to add to what you said, David. This is a wonderful federal initiative. Yana, congratulations to you, Montreal County, your commissioners, for being innovative. Innovation is absolutely local. When we look at the 2017, backing up, Crosby had the first scrub seal in the state. And we look around, the counties, the cities are really jumping in and helping us bring these items, these federal efforts, in and making them mainstream and allowing others to use it. So kudos to you, Yana. I can't wait till next year when you share more about this story.
Thank you.
David, back to you.
Thanks, Dale. Thanks, Yana. All right, it looks like the schedule has brought us to a break now. So why don't we take a quick break? We're really close to the 9:45. So let's everyone get up, stretch your legs, grab some coffee, and be back by 10 a.m., please. Thank you.
Nice job, Yana.
Thank you.
And thanks for redoing that video, because it was just locking up on our end, and it was worth seeing the rate that isn't all that fast, but for a half mile, you'll get that project done pretty quick.
Well, I'm glad the video worked at the end. I don't know why or what was the problem, but I'm glad they were able to see it at the end.
Right. And Gil, thank you. Very nice job. And when we post your presentation, we'll be sure, we're going to send out a notice to everybody with the links to the recordings and the presentations. And we'll be sure to add that Minnesota, highlight that Minnesota program. So thank you.
Yep. Thanks. Hey, just kind of a quick comment.
Yeah.
We in South Dakota started down that path of high friction surface treatment, 8 or 10 years ago, with very good success on the state system. Lowered and reduced accidents greatly in some areas where they had slippery type stuff, especially out in the hills area, Black Hills. And there's a couple of curves in Sioux Falls on some concrete that they had serious problems with slipping. So.
Well, that's good to hear. We're super excited because we have icy conditions on this hill pretty much all winter long.
Yeah, like I said, I think you're definitely going to see some reduced accidents. Granted, the stuff costs a lot, but I think it is well worth the effort. So.
Well, thanks for sharing that information. Excited to see how it's going to perform.
So Gil, if I could just ask a couple questions. Now, I'm a new inspector. I'm just starting my career. I'm out on my first chip seal. I don't really know the oils. I don't really know the aggregates. Now, contractors absolutely do. I mean, that's the kind of sealing contractors. They've got it down. They are a great resource as a new engineer. Ask, learn from them, ramp up your learning. But I still want some base confidence. Are there tips? What do you look for? You talked about salt and pepper. What could I look for and get that general feeling if I'm hitting it?
Well, like I said, when we went to that method, went to that new design thing, thanks to Tom Wood, by the way, for getting us into that back in 2000. He's the guy that led us down that path, Dale. We first introduced, I think, in 2002 to a metro region, and we had a gal out there that was well versed. She'd done all her chip seals for years, and she was really dubious when Rick and I came to her with this thing, you know, and here's what we're going to do. Well, we happened to be out on the job the kind of the first day or two, and she just kind of shook her head about, Jesus, you know, what am I doing here? You know, well, you want to see that, well, really, you want black? No, that's not good. Well, after that, we proved it, and after a day or two, they actually got to actually save so much aggregate on there. They did 10 additional road miles of chip seal that fall, or that summer, you know, type thing. So as opposed to what else I can see, other than going to Federal Highway and getting that checklist, Dale. That'll kind of walk them down through a deal and teach them what to look for. Like I said, because there's a whole bunch of other things that I didn't touch on and I'm not that versed on, that Tom is more and more than I am, about calibrating the machine right. You know, like I said, having the correct height of the spray bar, correct nozzle angle type thing. Those are very important issues also, just as opposed to that look. Making sure, you know, your stockpiles are clean, don't have any large rock in them, you know, make sure they screen those type thing. So I don't know if Tom can add anything else in on that, but those are some little tips type thing, but say those are some key points.
I think the one thing I would add, and you folks in North Dakota got a great resource, and then South Dakota in the 2 LTAPs and training on chip seal. There's probably some video of training that we've done with North Dakota LTAP and even maybe South Dakota LTAP there to look at them. And then, like Gil said, just ask questions. Get a hold of me, get a hold of Gil. You know, there's a lot of people out there that want to help you succeed.
Yeah, and with technology, man, we can take a quick video clip, a picture, and send you Tom, and as you mentioned, others, and we're going to be learning more about Gerard on our LTAP team. So easy to get that second opinion, which is so vitally important, because seal coats, you cover a lot of ground. You want to get it right before you have any problems.
Yeah, like I said, they definitely cover a lot of territory in a hurry. So that's why you want to know what you're doing up front. You know, otherwise you're going to be down the road 5 miles and lost, right, Tom?
Oh yeah, been there, done that.
But and like I said, that's the other thing. That's the only way you learn is by experience. So sometimes maybe you go through one of those, you know, and you know maybe what to look for and ask questions earlier next time.
It goes back. One of the key things on any inspection is communication, and I've been an inspector. I've been on all 3 sides of the fence, 4 sides of the fence. Knowing what your plans call for, if you got areas that you've got concerns and you're an inspector, talk to the contractor before the project starts. Hey, how are you going to deal with this intersection? How are you going to do that? And they may not have thought of it, but at least you get them started and you get the conversation going. And the more communication you have, the less problems you have, in my opinion. Oh,
absolutely. And Dale, that design I highlighted in that presentation down in Aurora County, by the way, if I hadn't shown up on the job, nobody would have been there to watch that, knowing that it was going down that heavy and that thick. County guys, no, that guy's done a good job for us for years. We don't even need to go out and watch what he does. Well, I kind of proved to him, and that's why we've been trying to preach to our guys, or try to get them on board to get out there and watch what guys are doing out on your roads, guys. You know, you're goddamn wasting a lot of rock down the ditch, because when the county engineer found out that, you know, that they were wasting that much, he actually got them to lower the rate some, not as low as what they should have been, you know, or what they could have been, you know. But the guy, according to the design up front, according to the specs and the plans he bid, he was supposed to come to the job with a design. An old established contractor from down in the southeast corner of the state, and he'd done it that way for years, and that's the way he's going to do it, you know. Because I asked him, well, what are you going to start shooting? Well, says, here's what the plans call for. That's what I'm going to start, you know. And I think in actuality, the plans called for that was supposed to be a 2 application rate, not 1.
Whoa, that's a big shift.
So, you know, as you as an outsider coming in, you can't say a whole lot, of course, type thing. You got to go talk to your county highway guy and say, get out there and watch these guys, you know.
Good call. You know, one of my favorite videos, and we have it on our LTAP resource page, is Tom, your video in the Twin Cities when you were with MnDOT, and it's just a perfect quick video that shares a story of how seal coats are done and where they can work, how well they work. And then I also like your story that you share on different bidding methods for seal coats based on oil, and trying to minimize or conserve the chip application rate. So good learning that you've handed off to us. And yes, Tom, we have that recorded and love to share it with people.
Quick question for you, Dale. In that regard, you talked about how you're bidding a job type thing. I know we've got a lot of county entities and city entities around here that I've been working with, want to do it by the square yard, and I think that's the way I would prefer to go forward too. At least you put the onus on the contractor about wasting rock and oil, right, Tom? Type thing.
Well, not just square yard. You've got to still have the oil or the binder separate, or else.
Yeah.
Michigan tried a warranty with square yard, and they had nothing but failures, because if you tell them the range is between 3/10 and 4/10, I guarantee you the contractor is only going to put 3/10 down.
They're only going to shoot 3.
Yep, because that's the only way they can get to work. And that's the reason why when we changed the specs at MnDOT, I looked at what Michigan was doing, and I said, okay, I'll take the square yards for the rock and all the construction activity, but I'm going to pay for the oil separate, because every road needs a different amount of oil.
Yep. Good point. I'm going to take that forward, because I helped a city entity out that's the way they bid it in the past, and now I'll know better. See, Dale, we can all learn here in this thing. So
amazing, awesome. One more comment before we switch it back to our session, and that is we just got a message in from Eric Osland, who is with our spec group here at the North Dakota DOT, and that is the bauxite, the material for the high friction surface treatment that Yana is going to be doing in Montreal County. And it used to be that it all came from China, and it was, as you would expect, very expensive. We started making it in the southeast part of the state, and Eric just passed on that there's also bauxite from Wyoming. So other sources coming up to make that treatment process more affordable. Oh. So David, there are a few comments and questions that we had to learn from Gil and Tom, and I'll turn it back to you so you can start right on time at 10.
Great, thanks, Dale. We got just a few minutes left before we start back, and I do have a question. So this is a safety engineering asking the man in the know. Can you explain cutback? What is that? What does that mean?
Well, it's just an asphalt that's cut with some type of a cutter stock. I think the old one used to be diesel. I'm not sure what they use anymore, Tom. You can probably chime in, but it's an oil type product to make it a little more liquid and viscous so you can shoot it.
The MCs are cut back with a distillant, which is like kerosene or diesel fuel. The one that got outlawed was the old RCs that were cut with Napa gasoline because they had benzene issues and cancer issues with it. And the whole goal is at room temperature, asphalt binder is not usable. So there's 3 ways to make it usable. You heat it up hot to lower the viscosity. That's what we do when we heat it and run it through a hot mix plant. Or you can cut it with some sort of distillant like kerosene or diesel fuel, and then you only have to heat it up to 225 or 250, and I could be off on my temperatures because my memory's not very good. Or you can emulsify it, where you blend water and a surfactant in and lower the viscosity. But at the end of the day, they're just methods to deliver the binder to the road. In some parts of the country, they use hot applied asphalt binder. You know, they heat it 350 and spray it on the road. So, I mean, at the end of the day, what's important is how much binder you get on the road, that you get the right amount of binder on the road.
Excellent. Thank you. I was confused. I appreciate that. All right. It is right up at 10 o'clock on my computer here. So we'll just go ahead and move into our next presentation. And our next presentation is going to be NDL-TAP Boots on the Ground. And this is going to be an effort to train and support the people on the streets and the road. Those people actually, they're out there just doing the work, which is what we need. And so here to tell us more about this are 2 gentlemen, one with Aztec and Mr. Tom Wood with Aztec, and Mr. Gerard Feist with actually NDL tab. Mr. Wood has worked in the road construction maintenance for over 40 years. He has a mix of public and private service. The last 20 years, he has worked on pavement preservation treatments, specializing in emulsion-based methods. He also teaches classes for numerous LTABs and the National Center for Pavement Preservation. Mr. Gerard Feist is the NDL tab asphalt expert, providing an on-site asphalt and equipment maintenance outreach. For the past 17 years, Gerard has led a wide array of asphalt roadway repair and preventive maintenance efforts. Gerard has extensive knowledge in the areas of crack sealing, routing cracks, rubberizing cracks, cold mix patching, spray patching, complete overlays, new paving of roads, and pothole repair. Wow. Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Wood. Go ahead.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. As David said, we've got this North Dakota LTAP Pavement Preservation Outreach Program called Boots on the Ground, and I'm really excited about it because it's got a lot of opportunities to build networks and help get communications there. So this is it's like I love this logo that Dale sent me. It's like a learning espresso. So what is Boots on the Ground? It's an on-site visit. It's open discussion on various topics. The discussions are tailored to the wants and needs of the attendees. In other words, this is your day. You know, if it's anything related to pavement or gravel roads or whatever, we're going to try to help you out. Can include a pavement review. It's a discussion of equipment needs and operation. This is where Rodney Ness and Gerard come in really strongly because their background is more on equipment. I mean, I used to run equipment. I still run some, play with it and stuff. I'm more of a materials guy. And the one key thing that we stress is safety. And the goals is to share information on best practices for maintaining hot mix asphalt pavements. And there's no cost to you. And we're currently scheduling for Western North Dakota from May 3rd to May 18th, and I need to change those dates, Dale. So the leaders of the discussion is, like we said, Gerard Feist and North Dakota LTAP, and Rodney Ness of Swanston's equipment, and then I'm helping out. And I back up just a little bit here. Let's see. I should explain a little bit about my new role. I'm now working for Aztec Corporation. We're a large preventative maintenance pavement preservation contractor. I started in September when I was approached to come to work there from WSB. The owner of the company said, I want somebody just going out and helping people figure out what to do with roads. And I told the owner, so if I tell them that the road needs to be paved with concrete and you don't do that, he said, that's fine. You give them the best information. So he has seen the value of allowing me to continue what I did at MnDOT. So I'm really excited about it, and it's been a fun ride so far. So Gerard and David sort of took this Feist. He's the asphalt consultant for LTAP. He worked for Burleigh County for over 20 years, various roles, like you said, in crack sealing, patching, and paving. He brings a broad background and expertise in equipment operations and pavement. And at this time, we're going to turn it over to Gerard.
Good morning.
Gerard?
Yep, I'm here. Good morning.
Let me know when you want them advanced.
Okay. Good morning. This is the red book. We're going to talk about the safety part of it to begin with. It's on who should use it and why we should use it. It's really designed to help out people when you're doing new projects, to try to get out there, and if you're not sure what to do, go through this book. It'll take you step by step through it to help you out. Okay, on here, on the slide you see right now, this is things that you should have with you at all times, especially when you're out crack sealing, whether you're using hot oils or you're using mastics or rubber on there. Your burn kits, your first aid kits. You see the bottle of water on there. That's if someone gets burned, you have water on hand to start pouring water on the skin to take the burning away from it. There's also your keep cool cards. It tells you exactly what to do if somebody does get burnt, whether it's rubber or with oil on it. Okay, next slide. This is a crew working out on the highway here. You can see the way they cut it out. Nice vertical cuts on it. Next slide. There's the filling of it. You can see they're using a dual sander, just running it in and raking it out. Okay, next one. Here you can see the patch has it where they completed rolling it. Here's a Durapatcher. You can see it. This is on concrete. A Durapatcher is a really good tool to use in situations like this. You can see where they're tacking it really well before they put the chips down. There's a picture of the Durapatcher. There's the new one out. I do believe this one here was up in Williston. This is a one-man operation. You sit inside the cab. You don't even have to get out to operate it, which keeps you to people off the highway, and it's safer for them. Here's different picture. As you can see, not all your tracks run straight across the road on it. You can see your roads moving on it. Here's a problem that we've had in a few areas. You can see where the chip seal's coming off where it was painted on it. Here's the same thing here. That was actually overlay. It still came off at that point on it. This is a city street. As you can see, it's all cracked up. Which was really surprising about this street was every piece in there was as hard as you could make it. Nothing was moving. There were trucks going by us and stuff, and the base was really good. They're going to try to mill and overlay this on it. When is enough? I guess you look at this picture here. This was all done with rubber in a parking lot. As you can see, the amount of material and manpower took just to do small areas like that. Here's another spot of the same parking lot. Okay.
Well, back up one.
Yeah, back up. How do I go back?
Okay, thanks, Gerard. What's neat about this boots on the ground is the things that Gerard just gave a brief overview, or some of the things that we try to share in there. And the team is a well-rounded team. You got Rodney Ness, who's with Swanstead, and once again, he also worked for Burley County as equipment operator and superintendent. And both him and Gerard are very knowledgeable about working with asphalt and the equipment and stuff. And I'll bring in some of the material side that fits in there. So it's really a neat team that we put together, or Dale put together. Okay, I need next slide. So the goals are to encourage the sharing of information between the old timers and the new employees or new workers. And what we're trying to do is to eliminate the recreating the wheel. I mean, there's nothing more frustrating. When I worked at MnDOT in research, you'd go back and you'd look 20 years back, and somebody came up with an idea and tried it and it didn't work. And then 20 years later, it'd circle back around because nobody studied history. It's also to build a strong network between agencies to share information. And when Gerard and I were talking yesterday a little bit, even more important, it's encouraging partnerships between the agencies to share resources and equipment, because not every agency can have every piece of equipment. Gerard showed pictures of the Durapatcher or the patching where they were doing the milling, and not every agency can afford to have all that equipment, but if maybe agency A has a little Bobcat mill and maybe agency B has a Durapatcher, well, when the B needs to do a little milling, there they can borrow from A and vice versa. And it's the ultimate goal is to help the agencies maintain their pavement network using a strategic program of pavement preservation methods. Next slide. So if you want to take part in the boots on the ground, get a hold of Dale. And there's no cost. That's the key thing. Next slide. So I'm going to segue into pavement preservation, and this is right from the federal highways. David, this will give you guys a little there. And what is pavement preservation? It's a program employing a network of long-term strategies that enhance pavement's performance by using an integrated, cost-effective set of practices that extend the pavement's life, improve safety, and meet the motorist's expectations. And that's right from federal highways. To me, it's doing the right thing to the right road at the right time. And the goal is to keep good roads good longer. And pavement preservation is very cost effective. The next slide. One more click. So, and this screen's a little hard to see, but NRRA, the National Road Research Alliance over here in Minnesota, which North Dakota's a member, did a study in their pavement preservation group, looking at the life extension or of doing surface treatments. And the 3 surface treatments they looked at are chip sealing, microsurfacing, and ultra thin bonded wearing course, i.e. Nova chip. And you'll see in the circled areas the results. And North Dakota was one of the big states to furnish data on the chip seal and the microsurfacing, not so much on the ultra thin, because I'm not sure that North Dakota's done it. But you're seeing on a bituminous over bituminous, they're showing 8 years of life extension. A bituminous over concrete, they're showing, oh, wait a minute, let me back up. They're showing 9 years. My bifocals aren't working good. And a B over C, or bituminous over concrete, they're showing 8 years. And the bituminous over aggregate base, 8 to 10 years. And the microsurfacing runs from, on the low end, 8 years to the high end of 15 years of life extension. I think the data shows those numbers. If I was talking to you, I would tell you a chip seal on a properly constructed chip seal, placed on the proper time of a pavement, should get you 5 to 7 years more life than if you did nothing to that road. And this is some of the stuff that on the boots on the ground we're going to talk about and share with people. Next slide. So keys to a successful pavement preservation program is understanding what's going on your pavements, having a pavement management program, rate the pavements, have a pavement management program. It rates the pavement, it predicts future condition, can help develop budgets, and can answer what is the options. My former boss at MnDOT, Jerry Geibel, favorite saying is, if you don't measure it, you can't manage it. Now, on pavement management programs, they can be as simple as doing a drive-by and using a pacer system, a 1 to 10 system, and rating them, to as intense as using a corral or a paver, where you go out and measure every crack and every distress there. But the key thing is, if you're doing your own pavement rating, rate what's there, not what you want. The other key things is keep updated on the latest developments and methods, and that's part of the goal of the boots on the ground. And then train current and new employees. I always like Roger Olson, I used to work for. Roger always says, yeah, the guy had 30 years experience, 30 years of bad experience. So we need to keep not only the new employees educated, but we need to keep the existing employees up to date on there. And to me, and Gil said the same thing in a little different way, pay attention to the small details, and the big issues will not happen. Next slide. So available tools, we got the federal highways on the left, distress manual. We got the Upper Great Plains distress manual on the right. Next slide. And we got pavement resource, PRRA, deal that Mr. Dan Wagman's going to talk about in a few minutes. Next slide. So what is PRRA? The Pavement Preservation Recycling Alliance provides a collective space to bring industry and agencies together for the advancement of sustainable, eco-efficient, and innovative pavement application. Wow. So it's basically a group of contractors and suppliers and agencies working together to get the best information out. It's just another tool in the toolbox. Next slide. And I'm not going to do Dan's introduction, but Dan's coming up there, and I've known Mr. Wagman. We were talking the other day. I think we met back in 1996 when Dan was a young man. He's very passionate in what he does. He understands pavement preservation probably as well as anybody does in the country. And he's just a good, down-to-earth person, and I consider him a very good friend. And I was just glad to we got a pet showing up. Glad to be able to just briefly introduce him. Next slide. And so if there's any questions about boots on the ground, we got pictures of Gerard and Rodney there, and they tried to take pictures of me, but I broke the camera. You can laugh now. Next slide. Oh, Dale, I didn't send you the one with Grandpa, but anyhow. So I want to thank you, and if there's any questions, we can try to answer them. And my contact information. Is there one more slide, Dale, or not? Okay.
Nope.
Well, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I do not like doing Zoom presentations.
You did extremely well.
Here, she doesn't think so.
Let me try to grab some information and see if I've got that for you.
I'm going to jump in here. Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Gerard. I really appreciate that. That was a really good presentation. And then I just want to plug again the boots on the ground. That workforce continuity, I believe, is so important to make sure that all us young kids have what we need to keep going into the future. I guess, Dale, you can jump in, but they need to contact you directly for any boots on the ground training or any resources with that pavement preservation for through Gerard. Is that right?
Yeah, contact our LTAP group. Any of the LTAP team is able and ready and willing to get this started. A little bit more about boots on the ground. There are 357 incorporated communities across the state. It's really difficult. Many of them are managed by a single person. And so how do we get that training? How do we help them identify the roadway condition? What are the best treatments? We're a good advocate. These guys will hit the ground, help them understand equipment, maintenance to what treatment should be done. Consulting engineers that are in the audience, please tap into our group. When our group is with the county, with the city, we'd love you to be there. We want to be the advocate that's supporting when you make the call that we should do a chip seal project and overlay. We want to be that tool, that group that helps you help the local city, county crew understand those different practices and what to put into place. So we're in a supportive role, and please tap into us at any end. So these guys are experts. They have equipment that they can show you how to run. We do demos. We walk out on the street. We connect people. We connect the engineering groups with the the field crew with the consulting engineer, the counties, cities, across all those borders. The three together are just unbelievable. And as Roger had mentioned, Tom, your previous boss, that many years of experience don't have to be good experience. For you three, they are incredible. These are top-notch people. So tap into them. LTAP, the North Dakota DOT, Federal Highway funds us to help local communities better. This is one of our outreach programs. Thank you, David.
Great, thank you, Dale. Now, if there was any questions, go ahead and put those in the Q&A. I'm not seeing anything on my end. However, there might be something on your end, Dale.
I got back to Gil's presentation, and he talked about having a bleeding issue with the chip seals over stabilized full depth reclamation, and he talked about the prime, and the prime probably didn't help there, but my experience, whether it's full depth reclamation or cold in place recycling, anytime, or even if you're chip sealing over a gravel road, if you're normally shooting, in our state, we shoot a lot of 38 hundredths of a gallon per square yard with the size rock we use on a paved road, we would start at 3/10. Because what happens is you push the aggregate down into the substrate, where when you're putting a chip on a HMA pavement, very little of the material of the rock gets pushed down into the HMA. But if you're on CIR or FDR or stabilized FDR, it's a softer surface. So to build off of what Gil said, that would be my one comment. And Gil, it was 1999 when we first met, and you were a young man then too.
That's great. Thanks, Tom. Really appreciate that wisdom. All right, we'll move on now. If I'm not seeing any questions here on my end, so we'll just go ahead and move on to our final presentation for the morning. Mr. Dan Wegman with WEGS is going to bring us a tool that road resource and some sort of application, and we'll let him explain that. But Mr. Dan has over 35 years of working with pavements, 9 years with MnDOT in construction and the bituminous office, and with over 20 years with various asphalt material suppliers and 5 years with Braun Intertech. Right now, Dan is working part-time with Braun Intertech and as a pavement consultant. So Dan, why don't you take it away for us?
Very good. Thank you, David, and thank you, Tom. I appreciate the introductions, and I do cherish all the friendships with everybody over the years and appreciate meeting everybody. Is my screen up?
Yes, sir.
Very good. So as Tom gave me a good introduction there, I'm going to be talking about roadresource.org, which is just another tool in your toolbox that you can use to not only understand your pavements better, but also help you in selecting the proper application for keeping your pavements in the best shape possible. So what I did to initiate this is went to Google Earth, and to save time, I kind of put a screenshot out here of a road I selected off of Google Earth. This is a road just west of Mandan, North Dakota. Probably Gerard is familiar with it. Anyway, you can see there that it's block cracked. It looks like they did a good job of crack sealing that roadway, but wanted to kind of take an example, and you can go into Google Earth and drill down to any one of your roadways and do this on the computer, and then go to the roadresource.org program, and we'll kind of give you a test drive of the program so you can see all the amazing things that it can do. But this is the beginning, is to go out and look at your road, get kind of a street view screenshot of your roadway, and then go from there. So with that, I am going to get out of this slide and go back to the stop sharing, and then I will switch over to the roadresource.org. Did that come through okay?
Yes, sir. We can see your Internet Explorer with a web page.
Okay, so you can see the PPRA program here, and you can see the at the top, it shows Pavement Preservation and Recycling Alliance. A little bit about us. It's got the treatment toolbox, network optimization, pavement preservation, recycling, emulsions, and resources. So let's start with about us, and let's go down. You know, you got all these things about the industry, the updates, how the data was obtained, but let's go down to the website roadmap here. And if you're not sure where to start, this is a good place to go because it kind of walks you through a step-by-step process. And to start out with, it says create an account, and you don't have to create an account. You can come in as a guest, but if you create an account and register, then you can go in and update all the tools that this offers and put in your own data as far as how long your different treatments last and how much they cost. So then you can customize this program to your particular agency and really get a really good pavement management system, so to speak, to work off from. It gives you a lot of disciplined information, which treatment is right for my road. Got a lot of comparison of different calculators used for both cost and for environmental aspects. Then you've got the main aspect of it, which is the Treatment Resource Center. You can get into equivalent annual costs, life cycle costs, remaining service life, a lot of success stories submitted, and then get into cost benefit value. So let's start out with the toolbox, treatment toolbox here. And you can see that you can either explore your road by pavement criteria or by pavement photos. So let's start out with pavement criteria. And the reason that that's kind of a nice way to go is you can get a lot from a pavement photo, but what that doesn't provide you is a condition rating that includes ride. So we know that the pavement condition index is a makeup of both ride and surface rating. And so just like Gil's presentation, the rating is from A to F. You can see the values attributed to that. Some people have ratings that go from 0 to 5 or 1 to 4 or things like that, but you can get an idea of what the different ratings are for the different type of road. As you can see from this picture, you've got a new road, which is rated A or 100%, all the way down to F, which is a road that's pretty much shot. And as you look at this, if you're going to try to guess what condition your road is, and you can either go out and use those condition ratings that Tom showed through the Upper Great Plains or the FHWA to evaluate a condition rating based on your assessment of the road condition, or you can kind of say, well, my road, I think, is about a rating of C. It's kind of halfway gone. And what happens when you do that is you're basically at this point in the road deterioration and you say it's going to be a C. You can see on the left here all the different tools that you have at your disposal. In the blue, it's the pavement preservation tools. In the green, it's the recycling tools. And then in the yellow, it's the base stabilization tools. And if you go on those, you can see at what depth you're going to be actually dealing with these different tools within the pavement structure. So you can certainly use pavement condition as a means. You can use your assessment rating in terms of what kind of degree of cracking do I have. You know, in that particular case that I had, probably had both longitudinal and transverse cracking that I would say, without seeing ride data, are probably in the moderate range. So you do that, and again, all the tools that you can look at are available to you, are emboldened in dark font. So you can see here that you've got some pavement preservation tools that can be used: cape seal, crack seal, scrub seal. And a lot of that depends on, if they're applicable, whether or not that road is keeping its ride integrity. And there was a picture shown of a road that was alligator cracked, but yet they said that none of them were popping out and it still provided a good ride. And that's usually the case for a road that's got a very good foundation, a good base and subgrade, that where the road can crack up. It's very aged and brittle, but yet it still maintains a good ride. So in those cases, you can sometimes use some of these surface treatments. So let's say a scrub seal, for instance. You can click on that and come down and find out what a scrub seal is all about. It provides information on the reduced life cycle cost. It gives information on how the material is placed and goes through the process. And so that's a good tool to utilize. Otherwise, you can go back to your toolbox again, and if you want to go down to the recycling and decide that recycling is going to be the best for you, you can click on cold in place recycling, and that gives you all the information on cold in place recycling that for your particular roadway. And then you can go back to your treatment resource center again, and gives you basically that information along with an overview. And this overview that you can get on each one of these different tools provides just a wealth of information that includes, variations of the process, expectations, cost information, history and best practices. It gets into pre-construction aspects of it, which would be site selection, material selection, gets into the mix design procedure if that's applicable. You can get into a specification review, gets into actually construction aspects that you want to look at as kind of that communication thing that Tom talked about. Whereas if you have that upfront communication, you're going to be very much better prepared to deal with some of the intangibles like changes in weather, different types of equipment that contractors might be utilizing out there, what you need to do to make sure that equipment's going to operate properly, which gets into calibration, and then also safety aspects like traffic control. It also talks about things that you can do to assure that the project is a success, which gets into the quality assurance aspects of it, inspection, testing protocol. And so it really provides you with a lot of information. And I urge you to go into this and click on any of these aspects that you're interested in. So let's say you're interested, what do I need to do for inspection on that? So you click on inspection, and it comes to an area where it provides, resources. The basic asphalt recycling manual, or BARM, is probably the best resource out there, and gets into all the different guidelines for inspection and all the different aspects that are going to be key to providing you with the best possible project, along with additional resources that are available as well. So that really, kind of shows you the guts of what's available within here. And now if we go back to, the different other types of treatments, you can come in here and go in and say you want to look at full depth reclamation. Can take you right directly to that different tool, and the same thing applies. You can go through and learn about the differences between full depth reclamation and maybe cold in place recycling, or any one of the other tools that are out there. And so that's really the most helpful part of it. So we were talking about exploring by pavement criteria, and I talked about how you can input your different pavement criteria. You also have an opportunity to put in the type of road that you're looking at. So the one I had kind of out west of Mandan, I would say that's probably going to be a rural minor collector. So you can put that type of road in, and then you can put in what type of surface is on that road, whether it be a traditional bituminous surface treatment or a dense graded HMA. All those aspects will help you dial in what the best options are for your tools in your toolbox. And the other way to look at these roads is to explore by pavement photos. So you can go back to your Google Earth, go back and look at your pavement photos, and the photo from the project that I had would can be looked at with the program because they've got all these different types of examples of pavement distress photos out on different roadways. And it starts out with the best condition pavements. As you can see up here, they're rated A, which are in the 85 to 100% range. And they move down to B, and then they move down to C, which we thought was probably the most applicable for that particular roadway. And so I look at these photos and I kind of go to this one right here, which is a PCI 55 to 69, because you can see in this picture there's a lot of the same type of block cracking, it just hasn't been crack sealed. So again, whether or not a surface treatment or partial depth or full depth tool is best applicable probably is going to be based on how that road rides, which really is an indication of if there may be some issues further down in that pavement structure than the very surface of that pavement. So that kind of gives you an idea of how you can look at your treatment toolbox. If you want to get in more depth in terms of looking at network optimizations, you've got a lot of tools to look at there. Every one of these has a how-to guide that you can go to that can walk you through the process. Let's go there real quick. So the how-to guide for network optimization, and that really talks about 3 steps. First step is to assess your pavement condition. It's going out there and doing those condition surveys, understanding what your pavement condition rating is or index is. And then with that, you can go and optimize your treatment plan by using that toolbox, going and understanding all those different options that are available to you. And some of you may have used a lot of those tools, and some of those tools might be new to you. So I would encourage you to click on a lot of those tools that you're not familiar with and go deeper into this program to better understand them and how they might be applied to any given roadway that you're looking at. And so in optimizing the tools, it gets into understanding equivalent annual cost, understanding remaining service life, understanding cost benefit value. And all those are different types of programs that you can use with your network optimization to really kind of plan your overall network, not just your given roadway, so that you're making your good roadways last as long as they can, and you're selecting the proper treatment for pavement rehabilitation. And over time, if you utilize these tools properly, what's going to happen is your overall network condition is going to improve under the same budget. So really what it's helping you do is take your existing budget and improving your overall network by applying this program to individual projects and then utilizing it over your entire network. So let's take a look at understanding equivalent annual costs real quick there. And really you can see here, you can take a look at the different types of treatments that are available to you, and there's all your tools again that you can put in. And like I said, if you go in and register yourself with the program, log into the site, then you have access to be able to put in your own numbers here. But if you don't, if you go in as a guest and say you select cold in place recycling with a 1.5 inch hot mix overlay, it will put in cost per square yard based on the average costs provided across the entire country by all the people that have been involved with this. And it involves a number of contractors, a number of agencies that have come together to provide all this data. And then if you ever have any questions on any of these aspects like life extension, you can click on the question mark there. It can talk to you a little bit about life extension, get some more information out of the Treatment Resource Center if you want. But really what you're looking at with this one is the equivalent annualized cost, which is what is it going to cost me per square yard per year? And so all that is really is taking and dividing the cost per square yard by the life extension. So we selected cold in place recycling. We also said that on that particular road, possibly a scrub seal or a cape seal might be applicable. Let's go with the scrub seal since that's what we talked about. And that based on all this data, provides a square yard price of $226 per square yard and a life extension of 6 years, which gives you an equivalent annual cost of 0.38. So here you can see, as you add more of these, we can go to full depth reclamation, or let's just say base stabilization with a 4-inch HMA. That's going to be quite a bit more expensive, but you're also going to be getting a much greater life extension. So all that data is, like I said, based on overall input information. I would say that if you go to a base stabilization with a 4-inch overlay, your life extension is probably going to be more in the 20 to 25 year range based on the roads that I've been involved with in the upper Midwest here. So it's probably a little bit conservative, but as you add more and more of these tools, go back to a surface treatment that we might want to consider, let's say a single lift microsurfacing, you can see that the surface treatments on an annual equivalent cost basis are going to be cheaper than the partial depth or full depth repairs, but you're going to have to come back and do something to that roadway much earlier. So that kind of gives you an idea of optimizing your treatment plan. Then also the third step of that process is measuring your progress and process. So you want to measure your process by actually how well the project goes, and that gets into all those tools available to you for inspection and equipment calibration and material selection, but also your overall progress. Did it go the way I wanted to? How much improvement did I get? And then utilize that for your overall network to really get that network optimization that you're looking for. So a little bit about the calculator that you have here. There's a lot of different calculators. This one here provides you with an opportunity to compare your conventional approach, which might be let's say a mill and overlay is what you would typically do, a minor mill and fill on a roadway like that, and optimized plan. You might be looking at a cold in place recycling with the same type of overlay, and you can get into both future costs and present value. Future cost is going to incorporate the inflation rate that you plug in here at the top. You can plug in your square yards here for how big the roadway is. And then it will actually go in and do an analysis for you. So let's say we've got 10,000 square yards, so it's a small project. And you've got your life cycle extension costs in there. And you go to your calculator. Oh, I just lost my data. But anyway, I can give you an example real quick on how that works with the network optimization right here. So this gets into, again, equivalent annual costs. And with this approach, the equivalent annual cost method, you can look at them here. Slurry seal, 2.12. Let's go to microsurfacing, single lift, cold in place recycling with a 1.5-inch overlay. And basically you can, come up with all these different equivalent annual costs on your given roadway. And so going back to that conventional approach versus your optimized approach, you can come in here and see what it's going to cost you for these approaches on a square yard basis per year, what your required annual budget would be based on those different approaches, and then give you what you're going to be saving over the life of that pavement. So that's kind of a really kind of quick review of equivalent annual cost. You can also look at remaining service life, and the remaining service life calculator is really helpful in terms of planning. I remember Larry Galehouse at the Michigan DOT, and then he went to the PR squared Pavement Preservation Institute, and he would use this a lot because they had concerns about their overall network and not having their overall network coincide with the planning schedule that they had in terms of what their budget is and also their contractor capabilities are. So they can go in and over their old network, put in all these different surface treatments or full depth applications, put in the life extension of each one of those, how many lane miles they plan on their network to treat, what the unit costs of these are, which would translate into a budget. And that way you can get into what your overall network impact is and how much you're going to be spending in preservation, how much you're going to be spending in rehabilitation, how much you're going to be spending in reconstruction. It also gets into the percentage of roads that are addressed. So if we go back to the remaining service life calculator again and plug all those in, you would get an output that would provide you with that information. So we can actually do that really quick. Let's say that we're going to have a chip seal program. We're going to do 30 lane miles with that at a unit cost of 2.06. We're going to have on our higher volume roads, we're going to look at microsurfacing. We've got 15 miles of that. And then on some of our roads that are more distressed, we're going to have a minor mill and fill on 8 miles of those. And we're going to look at our roads that are pretty much shot. We're going to be looking at full depth reclamation with a 4-inch overlay. And we've got 5 miles of those. So quickly inputting that, you can look at and see what your preservation costs, your rehabilitation costs are. And in order to get the percentage of roads addressed, you need to put in what your total network is, which would be applicable to your size of your county or agency. And basically, it'll provide you with this approach what kind of a lane mile of life addition you're going to get over your overall network. And what that does, it helps you for planning your 5-year and 10-year plans in order to really understand what you can do with your budget. And so playing around with these different tools will allow you to dial in really what the best bang for your buck is going to be with the available budget dollars. Also, pavement preservation, you can get into why is pavement preservation so important. Sustainability calculator, that gets into more of the environmental benefits of pavement preservation. So let's go to the sustainability calculator real quick and look at the differences between a conventional approach here. For an example, let's say your conventional approach is, again, a minor mill and fill, and your pavement preservation approach is going to be microsurfacing, because you've got one of those roads that has got a fair amount of cracking, but it's got a good ride. It seems to be holding together really well. So a surface treatment could very well provide you with a good life extension, maybe even close to that 11 years you get with your mill and fill, as opposed to the 6 years. MnDOT has shown that they've got up to 10 to 12 years of life extension with the microsurfacing, as opposed to going to their mill and fill. So I think you can actually go in here and change this on the fly. So let's say, based on your experiences, you're getting 10 years of life extension out of your microsurfacing, and in each case, you're looking at a roadway with roadways with about 20,000 square yards. So not too big. Okay, and then we've got, so a total cost of those two approaches, again, is going to be affected by that life extension value, but if you are seeing that kind of benefit from micro, which many of the districts in MnDOT are seeing that benefit, so they're going to a lot more micro than they are the mill and overlays. You can see that overall, you can realize quite a bit of cost savings. So 140,000 on this particular project, and the environmental benefit in terms of greenhouse gas emissions is reduced by 94% because you're not getting into the hot mix application of the process. You're getting into more of a ambient temperature application for a surface treatment. So hopefully that gives you an idea of, from an environmental standpoint, what you can do. And again, I only have so much time here, so I want to try to get through as many of these as I can, but I can't go into real depth on them. But if you're interested in recycling, you can also look at what the difference is in structural comparisons. So what are we talking about for structural comparisons in recycling? So again, you can take a look at CIR versus mill and fill. And you've got your existing layer of HMA and you got your existing granular base. And in this particular case, you got 6 inches of HMA and 8 inches of granular base. Your coefficient, your structural coefficient is 0.20 for the HMA and 0.12 for the granular base material. And you can calculate a structural number, which is basically just multiplying those two together. And if you ever have any questions on what these mean, you can again click on that question mark, and it will tell you, what they are and how to apply them. So overall, what you have then is multiplying that 6 times 0.2, you get 1.2 for the existing HMA, and then 8 times 0.12, 0.96. You add those together to get an overall approximate structural number of 2.16. So going down to the conventional mill and fill versus an optimized cold in place recycling. And in this process, you would go through the mill and fill, which would be the milling or the cold planing. You would be adding 3 inches of HMA on top of your existing 3 inches of HMA, and your existing base would stay the same. You can go through and do your calculations on your structural number, and then also your calculations on cost, come up with a cost per square yard, and then compare that to your cold in place recycling option here, where you've got 1 inch of HMA. And the reason that you're able to use 1 inch of HMA is because you've got more structural number associated with your cold in place recycling than you would have with a granular base material. And so what you've got typically then is your structural number being brought through based on the thickness and the coefficient, and multiplying those together. Your existing 3 inches that are left in place, and then your existing base that are left in place. So you can see here that the cold in place 3 inches is not going to be as high of a structural number as the 3 inches of HMA, but there you've got an opportunity to look at the overall structural number across your entire pavement. And overall structural number, when you add these up, is actually higher in this scenario than it would be in the mill and fill, and you're doing it at a significantly less cost. So again, these are numbers that were put in by data from all across the country. I would encourage you to get on the site, register with the site so that you can go in and input your own data to it. There is no cost to that. It's all information that you can develop on your own. And the data is something that would be extremely valuable to you every year, and it gets more valuable as years pass by because you're adding more data to your overall information, which makes the overall program that much more beneficial in terms of evaluating some of these different things. So the other thing with pavement preservation, I want to just mention some of the agencies that are industry associations that are part of developing this tool. The International Slurry Surfacing Association is big in the pavement preservation area. The Asphalt Recycling and Reclaiming Association is very big in the recycling area. And then when it comes to emulsions, you've got the Asphalt Emulsion Manufacturers Association, which is a material supplier into all these different types of treatment tools. And so if you want to learn more about emulsions, you can kind of get into, talked about cutbacks and emulsions. What's the difference between those? When you get into emulsions, you've got different nomenclature for those emulsions, which gets into, what are we talking about? Cationic, anionic, and you can learn about each one of those. You can get into, how well it's going to coat aggregate. So it talks about high float emulsions and, benefits of those in terms of coating dusty aggregate. Speed at which emulsions are set. Talked about rapid set versus medium set and slow set. You can learn a lot about those. Slurry seals fall under quick set. Viscosity and hardness are tied into that nomenclature in terms of what number is applied or the letter that's applied to that emulsion. And then different types of polymers that might be added to the product also come into play. So there's a lot to be learned about the materials as well that are going into these different processes. And overall, you can use the resources to find out, what have other people done? Can I learn about their projects? It has an opportunity to search in different articles. So here's all the different resource articles that you can go in and look at different success stories that people have used using this tool and applying it to different toolbox options or treatment options and what they resulted out of that. And some of them are going to be geared towards understanding cost benefits. Some of them are going to be geared towards understanding environmental benefits, or both of them coming into play. So that's just one thing you can get out of resources. You can learn about different areas that you can get training to learn more about what's available to you there. Asphalt Institute, FHWA has a lot of training courses. Safety aspects can come into play through different associations or organizations there. And then you also have an opportunity to ask an expert. There's a lot of volunteers that are available here. So if you have questions, you can go into any one of these associations, and they've got volunteers that, if they can't answer your question directly, they will find somebody that can within their vast association and get you the information that you need. So that's kind of a quick drive through of all the different aspects of the PPRA roadresource.org program. But again, what I want to encourage you is, if you're looking at really getting into what's available to me, you've got all these different types of treatments. You got all these different types of surface treatments, and they're adding more to these all the time. Like recently, I just came across a new term called void reduction asphalt membrane, VRAM. And what that is products that are associated with dealing with those longitudinal joints that many agencies have trouble with. Those longitudinal joints seem to open up and create distresses, letting water in much more quickly. So there's different processes out there to reduce the voids in your longitudinal joint that can make that roadway, typically the weakest link, oftentimes is your longitudinal joint, perform equally or better than the rest of your roadway. So I think in the future there'll be, different things like void reduction asphalt membrane will be added. as well, but you can go in here and look at different pre-treatments. Prime coats are becoming a lot bigger talked about issue, especially some of those penetrating products that can be used both on the surface and below a pavement structure. All these different recycling aspects. You know, one of the big difference between cold and hot in place recycling is just the depth that it goes into your pavement structure. And then also base treatments. It's becoming a real huge deal because there's an awful lot of roads out there that either have contaminated bases or weak bases, and we all know that your structure is only good as your foundation. So if you want to go in and learn about what I can do to improve my base or my subgrade, just click on one of those and it'll take you right to those topics and learn about, you know, soil stabilization, soil modification. Again, you've got this whole overview of all these different informational aspects that you can look at to understand all these different processes better and see which products are a best fit for your given roadway. So let's take a look at process variations here. So soil modification lays out the process, different types of equipment variations that are used, the equipment that's applied, different types of materials. You've got the chemical modification, chemical stabilization, proprietary products that are utilized in various areas for that application. Asphalt emulsions or foamed asphalt are typically more often used in bases than soil stabilization, but it's just a great opportunity to go in and look at what do I have available within my particular resource. And I guess I've got 5 minutes left. So all these different tools that are available to you, I kind of went through them relatively quickly. But again, if you go to your overall network and take a look at your toolbox and look at these different types of fixes. So let's say hot in place recycling right here, which takes care of surface distresses. You can quickly look at that or compare that to cold in place, which goes a little bit deeper into the pavement structure. Compare that to base stabilization, which gets down all the way into the base of the structure. And then also soil stabilization and soil modification. So all these different things look at all the aspects of your pavement structure. And oftentimes what you're going to want to do is go in and do some assessment work beyond just looking at that surface of the pavement, actually going and doing some coring and boring on that pavement so you can understand what's going on all the way throughout that pavement structure to better select which one of these tools that is going to work the best for you. So with that, I will turn it back to David as soon as I can get out of my presentation.
Yeah,
here.
that was great, Dan. That was a lot of information. It's like drinking from a fire hose. I just kind of want to point out that this is a free tool. Is that right?
Yes, free tool. All you have to do is go to roadresource.org. I would say budget yourself about an hour or two if you really want to get into the details of this program, because as I showed you, you keep clicking on all the different aspects of it. You just keep getting deeper and deeper and deeper and learning more about every single aspect you have and how to apply the tools and use them in a way that will allow you to make your projects perform better and your overall network improve.
Yeah, there was a lot of great calculators in there and a lot of great pictures and a lot of interactive features that looked really cool. One thing I did like is the photo selection. I think you could send a maintenance crew out there with an iPad and have them look at that roadway versus the picture on the website, and they can come back and tell you how your roads are doing. Definitely a nice little tool for somebody to quickly and easily identify your your pavement problems. You also had that life cycle cost analysis all the way through environmental considerations. Just a lot of information there that it was. Well, I don't know if we had enough time to really go through it. It was just so in depth. Thank you so much. That was
Yeah, no,
great.
I appreciate that because I actually attended a day-long 8-hour seminar down in St. Louis to learn more about that. They call them super users after you attend these longer versions of learning how the tool works. And I can say that once you go in and register and get on the mailing list, you get invited to not only different seminars that are placed on different aspects within the tool, but you also have opportunities to go to what they call boot camps, and those are handled virtually now, at least for now, where you can actually go in and get the more in-depth training on using the tool through the program itself. So I would urge you to go in, get on the mailing list, and then learn about all the different aspects that are available to you through that program.
Great. Now, you had mentioned something about a BARM manual. I guess that's the basic asphalt recycling manual. Where can they find that?
Yeah, the basic asphalt recycling manual can be purchased through ARRA, ARRA. But if you go to any contractor that does that type of work, let's say like Mid-State Reclamation is a contractor that does a lot of work in the upper Midwest here. Talk to Dan Shellhammer. He has purchased a great deal of those BARMs, and he's making them available to agencies upon request at no cost. So I would encourage you to give Dan Shellhammer with Mid-State Reclamation a call if you wanted to get a BARM. It's about probably about 3/4 of an inch thick, and it's just full of very good fundamentals of recycling and application of these different processes.
Great. Thanks, Dan.
You bet.
Dale, are we seeing anything in the Q&A right now?
You are good to go, David. Nothing in the Q&A.
Great. So I guess with that, we have successfully closed out another North Dakota Asphalt conference brought to us kindly by our sponsors. Please take a moment to check out that list of sponsors in your program and just page through that and notice all the great support we're receiving from both public and private entities. I know that Dale works really hard at this, and we really want to thank Dale for all that he's done and put together this conference, because it's really a great opportunity to get together and learn something new and network with those in our industry. So with that, I'm going to call an end to this one, and I want everyone to be safe and for the week coming and rest of the day, and thank you, everybody. Goodbye.